meeting for this Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. Tonight we're again on coming to you by a video teleconference and can be accessed through a number of ways by phone or internet, and also on cable TV and YouTube, etc. I invite you, if you need to connect, to go to the city's website and you can get that information. So from there, we will go ahead and start out with getting taking the roll call, and I'll ask Ms. Howard to do that.
Thank you. Good evening. Atkins, Hartley.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Leeper.
Here.
Lynch.
Here.
Bordeaux.
Here.
Saul.
Here.
Trot.
Here.
Just Atkins absent this evening.
All right. Thank you very much. Our first item would be to approve the minutes from the July 22nd meeting. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries. We will go on to our next item, which is public comments, and this is for anyone who has something they would like to address the commission on that is not on the regular agenda tonight. And I'm going to just go to our attendees list, which is rather short, and see if there's anybody there who would, if you would raise your hand on the Zoom, we would recognize you. Seeing none, we will go on to our regular business, and we have several items tonight of new business. So our first item is a final plat for Crisbro subdivision. Who is going to introduce that tonight?
That will be me, Mr. Hose.
All right, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Hose. Good evening, everyone. So here is the first case for tonight. It's to approve the Crisbro subdivision final plat. So this property is, we should start with the presentation. Okay, here it is. So Crisbro subdivision, just a brief introduction. The star on the left side indicates this is the site map, and to the right is the current imagery. The current imagery is basically a part of the Lockhart Pines subdivision. And over the years, there has been like several commercial development around this area, and which includes Super 8 Motel, Quick Star, Farm Credit Services, and Comfort Suites. One of the remaining lot was purchased by the petitioner in 2011, which is this lot. A plan for new Hilton Hotel was reviewed by Planning and Zoning and City Council in 2011. So this is where the hotel sits. You could see that in the imagery. And there was another conference center that was approved in 2017, which just it's an addition to the hotel, to the east side of the hotel. In addition to it, there was another hotel plan approved where you could see the paving on the southwest side. That's where the other hotel was approved by City Council and Planning and Zoning. And the preliminary plat for the entire subdivision was approved in last year's summer for the entire division by Planning and Zoning and City Council. So at this point of time, it's basically to approve the final plat based solely on the preliminary plat that was approved, so that the developer can sell the lots and proceed with commercial developments. So that's the basic gist of it. The slide that you see, the highlighted portion is the plat. As you see, the property is located in Highway 1 Commercial Zoning District. and any development on any of these lots will require planning and zoning and city council review. As discussed previously, lot 1 was already reviewed for Hilton Hotel and the conference center. Lot 2 for the new hotel, and current there are 2 more developable lots, that is lot 3 and 4, and track A and track B are part of the stormwater detention. The highlighted area is a private drive, so this subdivision is accessed by this private drive. These are the 4 segments that the current subdivision has. So lot 3 and lot 4 are yet to be developed, and this will be developed once the final plat is approved. Everything is ready to go. In the next slide, we can see that track A and track B will be the detention basins that would serve the entire property. Apart from it, in addition, I would just like to add all the utilities and the internal road connections are private. The internal infrastructure is available to all the platted lots and to access to public streets. The petitioner's engineer has submitted a stormwater management plan for these 2 detention basins, and that meets the city code. Other important thing is there is a 20 feet setback that is along the internal street, which the developer has shown. So that will have to be maintained whenever a new development comes to lot 3 and 4. And of course, any reviews will be taken by planning and zoning and city council at our further meetings. And the sanitary sewer to this development is also provided by private underground sanitary sewer network that connects all the lots. So everything is good to go. I think they just need the approval from planning and zoning to finalize, and city council to finalize the final plat and move forward with the selling the lots. So in the next slide shows our recommendation that the Community Development Department recommends approval of this case for final plat for Crisbro subdivision, with any comments and directions specified by Planning and Zoning Commission, and confirm to all the recommendations and technical requirements.
Great. Thank you, JD.
No problem.
At this time, I would ask if any of the attendees would, looks like representing the owner would like to comment. I'm guessing it looks like you, Wendell. You there, Wendell?
Yeah.
I am.
Did you want, are you wanting to give us a little update from the owner's end?
Yeah, I don't know that he necessarily has any immediate plans. As you can imagine, with COVID, the second hotel is on hold indefinitely, and that may kind of influence whether the other lots get sold also. But since we had already, since we had already done the preliminary plat, before that time frame expired, we want to go ahead and get the final plat, create the parcels, so that in case there is a change in the economy for hotel and convention centers, that they'd be ready to go.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Wendell. I would ask if there's anybody else in attending who would like to make a comment on this project, to please signal your interest in speaking, and I will recognize you. We'll see none. I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion or discussion. Sorry.
I'd move to approve it.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Would second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? So I think this is a pretty straightforward one and falls into all the parameters they set up in the preliminary plat. So I think it looks good. Well, based on that, we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote. And Ms. Howard I'll ask her to take the roll call.
Hartley,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Prideaux,
Aye.
Saul,
Aye.
Trot.
Aye.
So that motion carries, and that'll move on to City Council. Do you know when that will happen by chance, Karen?
Uh,
Go ahead, JD.
Yep, I think we are waiting for a few the signed deed of dedication and the mortgage certification from the owner. So once that is received, we'll be shifting this to a city council meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks, JD.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is a site plan amendment, S1 Shopping District at 6301 University Avenue, Hy-Vee. Who's introducing that tonight?
I will take that one.
All right, thanks, Chris. You're on.
Okay. So Hy-Vee has offered online ordering for several years. The method to do so currently involves staging the orders using an informal portable office in the rear parking lot where customers can pick up their order. So since a significant uptick in online orders was spurred by the recent pandemic, the need for a more permanent solution arose. This is being addressed by the proposed site plan improvements. The property in question is in the S1 Shopping Center District, which in the case of a major modification requires a mandatory site plan review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So creating a more formal online order pickup area in the rear parking lot has been determined to be a significant parking change, which is one of the items listed under the S1 district as a major modification. So moving on to the next slide. This proposal includes a small storage building, dedicated parking spaces for order pickup, an overhead canopy, some parking lot improvements, and signage. It will eliminate 62 parking spaces, which is a small dent in the 670 parking spaces that are currently provided on site. Go to the next slide. As far as the small storage building and canopy, these are the elevations of the proposed structures. The top left and the bottom illustrations are views from the west, and the top right illustration is the view from the north, or rather the view from the principal structure. The proposed building is shown to use thin brick and stone wood cladding, while the proposed canopy is shown to use pre-finished aluminum panels. These materials are similar, at least complementary to those on the principal structure. Go to the next slide. As part of this review, this body should also consider the signage that they are proposing. Aisles Online is the brand that Hy-Vee has established for their online ordering. This branding is proposed to go on the west wall of the storage building. All other signage is to help patrons navigate through the interior of the site, as indicated by the sign saying "Pick up here." And there is also a flow diagram here showing where directional signs will go. That's pretty simple. We'll go to the next slide. This is the recommendation. So introduction of this site plan is for discussion and public comment, but if there are no concerns or outstanding questions from the commission or public that need to be addressed at a subsequent meeting, we recommend that the commission make a recommendation to council and the Community Development Department recommends approval subject to any conditions that may be determined here and otherwise recommended by city staff.
Great. Thank you, Chris. At this time, I'd ask anybody representing Hy-Vee who would like to make a comment, if they would raise their hand. Here we got, okay. John, are you there? Are you there? Let me, hold on. There we go. Okay. I think I got you now, John.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. John Brenham, I'm Director of Site Planning for Hy-Vee. Appreciate you reviewing this item tonight. A little background to help understand why we're doing this. Back in March, when COVID broke out, we went from maybe 40 to 60 orders in a single day at our stores, which was easy to handle with 4 or 5 parking stalls outside, or we could use our drive-up lane up front. But when COVID hit, we jumped 300 to 500% in orders, and we've had to hire a lot of people. Half the people in the store right now are folks picking orders for people who are ordering groceries online. And so we needed a place to stage and store all those orders before they get picked up. The project that you see in front of you this evening is kind of like the last hour or two of holding for the groceries. The groceries are picked from the store and they're sorted inside the store, and then they're put in insulated totes and then brought out to this container 1 hour or less before the customer comes to pick them up. The container itself is pretty simple. It's out there already. You can see it. It's a steel structure. We'll add building panels to it, secure it to the ground. Basically, what you see out in the parking lot today is the frame. The inside of the container has HVAC, so it's air conditioned and heated. Has lights, obviously, but there's no other utilities to it. There's no water, no sewer, none of those other utilities. And then we're planning on adding a canopy as well to add some weather protection, both to our customers and our employees who are loading groceries during rain events and snow and other inclement weather. If we get approved through council, I hope we would be able to get that under construction in October. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thanks, John. Does commissioners have any questions for John? All right. Well, thank you, John.
Thank you.
I would ask if there's any other attendees who would like to make a comment on this proposed project. If so, indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, I'll bring that back to the commission for discussion or a motion.
Looks pretty simple. I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? Seems like a very timely project, and very beneficial. So, no other comments? We'll go ahead and Karen, go ahead and take the roll call vote again.
Okay. Hartley,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Prideaux,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Strad,
Aye.
all voting aye.
Great. So that motion carries. So that'll move on to the city council. Do we know when that happens? I'm sure they're anxious to get going.
Yeah, we intend to do a quick turnaround on this. So I think this Monday.
Okay.
So
sounds good. All right. Moving on to our next item of new business, which is a central business district overlay design review for a projecting sign at 515 Main Street. And who's introducing that tonight?
Oh, that will be me, Mr. Host.
All right, JD, you're back on.
Yes, thank you. I think, Karen, if you move the next slide. Oh, okay, here it is. So, yeah, I think we have a design review for 515 Main Street. So basically, the idea here is to propose a new projecting sign for a new business, Splendor Medical Spa. So this is basically situated at West 5th and Main Street, like at the corner of West 5th and Main. So the projecting sign would be over the public sidewalk, which would mark the presence for the new business. So I've highlighted the section where exactly it's going on the red dot, as you can see on your presentation. Normally, we don't review all the signs in this central business district overlay by planning and zoning and city council. But because this is a sign which is proposed on over a public sidewalk, that is the reason why we are reviewing this. The applicant is proposing to install a new projecting sign, which will be facing the main West 5th and Main. The projecting sign will also be located along the Main Street, so it's going to be next to the Main Street. The projecting sign is required to have at least 10 feet clearance above sidewalk and cannot project further than 5 feet from the facade of the building, which is the least. So in this case, the applicant is proposing to have a 3 feet 9 inches sign projecting 3 feet 9 inches from the wall, and it's going to be at 10 feet from the sidewalk. So it does meet both the requirements as per the city code. The other detail for the sign is it's going to be a non-lighted sign, and the projecting sign is going to be fabricated with aluminum 1-inch plate, and there will be alupanel faces lettered and printed graphic on the sign. So, and I think the square footage for sign is about 9 square feet per sign face. So, I mean, all of those things does meet the city code. So this is just a request, and so the recommendation from Community Development Department is to approve this for the Splendor Medical Spa and take this to City Council if approved.
Great. Thank you, JD.
Thank you.
Any attendees who would like to address this? It looks like our list of attendees is dwindling, so I'll bring it back to the commission for any comments or a motion. Go ahead, Dale.
I do have a question. It's non-lit. Will there be lights projecting onto it, or is there no lights involved at all?
I think the petitioner has indicated that it's no light at all, so it's just going to be a non-lit sign.
Then I would request a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Who seconded that?
Leslie.
Okay.
Thank you, Leslie. We have a motion. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask Ms. Howard to again take the roll call vote.
Hartley,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Prideaux,
Aye.
Saul. Oh, I can see her. She's muted. Leanne is indicating that she's voting yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Leanne. Sherrod,
Aye.
thank you. All voting aye.
Great. So that motion carries. And we'll move on to City Council. All right.
Yes, I think we will be expecting a quick turnaround like for the next Monday's meeting. So they should be on the next Monday's meeting. So yeah,
Great. Thank you, JD.
thank you.
All right. Our next item of business is a central business district overlay design review for another projecting sign. This one's at 212 Main Street, the Masonic Lodge. And who's in that one?
Thank you, Mr. Host. Yes, I'll be taking this again. This is the second proposal for tonight for Central Business District review, for a design review. This one is for 212 1/2 Main Street for Masonic Lodge. I think here what they're trying to do is to, if you go to the next slide, here what the petitioner is trying to do is to replace the aging awning structure and create like a new look for and signage for the Masonic Lodge. So as you can see on the left side, this is the existing awning and the sign that sits right today, which is like semi-curve, and they have the letters alongside it. But the new one, as you see on the right side, it's more like a roof, but not exactly a roof. It's more like a new covering and basically a new look to what they had. So this is the proposal. I'm going to review. And as previously discussed, I think the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council are required to do this review because it's part of a substantial improvement category for the zoning code. So here, if the improvement includes the new awning and the new signage over it. If we go to the next slide, I'll walk you through the details of the sign and the awning. So applicant is proposing to install a sign that would elaborate Masonic Lodge, which is approximately 9 feet wide and 9 feet 2 inches wide and 5 feet in height. So the main body would be covered in sunbrella fabric. The wall sign on the projecting awning is distributed in 4 segments. So the first segment includes the letters, the Masonic Lodge, which is spread over 8 feet 3 inches on the awning and is about ½ feet in height. And the other 3 segments include the 3 emblems that they have, which varies from 4 to 9 square feet. One emblem, which is the central one, will be placed on the front fascia of the awning and will be made of illuminated channel letter. So this is the only illuminated portion of the sign on this awning. And the other 2 emblem will be like the painted fabrics over the roof, and that will be facing towards Main Street. The proposed awning projects about 4 feet 5 inches over public sidewalk and has an approximate 9-foot clearance above pedestrian ways. As far as code is concerned, we are the minimum clearance is 8 feet, which is required to be required to maintain, and the maximum projection that an awning can have is about 5 feet over the public sidewalk, and in this case, it's 4 feet 5 inches. I think everything that the proposal has meets the city code, and the area for the sign faces is up to 40 square feet, which is they can go up to 40 square feet per sign face, and I think in this case it's just 4 and up to 4 and 9 square feet. And I think the total signage percentage comprises up to 26 square feet, which is under 40. So I think both the sign and the awning meets the city code and the central business district requirements as far as the substantial improvements and the siding and the awning goes. So the next slide is our recommendation to approve this case for 212 1/2 Main Street for the new projecting awning and the sign for Masonic Lodge, and move to City Council. Again, this, if approved by PNC tonight, we'll be having a quick turnaround for City Council in the next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks again, JD. I'm looking at our attendees, see if we have anybody to speak on this. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
I would move to approve since it's so straightforward.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll pass it back to you, Ms. Howard, for a roll call vote.
Hartley,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Bordeaux,
Aye.
Saul,
Aye.
Schrod.
Aye.
All voting aye.
Great. So that passes. We'll move on to city council. Our last item of regular business tonight is a subdivision code text amendment, a Division 3 final plat, city code section 20-100. I'm guessing, Karen, you're introducing this one tonight.
Yes, I'll be introducing this text amendment tonight. I'll get the screen in the right place here. I submitted a brief staff report to you about this item. I just want to run through some of the highlights of that. As you are aware, the purpose of the subdivision code, I think it bears just repeating and to remind ourselves what the purpose of that code is. And that's to establish standards for the design, development, and improvement of subdivisions so that the existing land uses will be protected and so that adequate provisions are made for public facilities and services. And so that growth occurs in an orderly manner consistent with the comprehensive plan and to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the city. This is very similar to the purpose language in the Iowa Code. And of course, the city's subdivision code must follow Iowa Code. So as you're aware, we require when there's an owner that would like to subdivide their land into lots, we require them to preliminary plat the land first. The preliminary plat, the intent of that is to show the basic layout of the streets, blocks, and lots of the subdivision and indicate how those public improvements will be extended to serve the new lots created. And I think that's a lot of the discussion that we have at the commission when you see those subdivisions is how will those improvements be extended? What kinds of environmental features are on the land right now? Those are identified on the preliminary plat and how those will be protected or their loss mitigated. It also shows how the new development will fit into the larger community of neighborhoods and ensures that will be designed to protect the interests of both current and future property owners. So to ensure that all those particular goals are met, those standards are met, the code requires that owners include the entirety of their contiguous holdings on the preliminary plat. So that's why we see some larger preliminary plats. And then with the final plat, it is the obligation of the owner and developer to design and construct all those public improvements that are necessary to support the proposed development prior to the final plat. So the cost of those improvements is incorporated really into the price of those lots and then so that they're made available for sale with the final plat approval. So with larger developments, the land is often final platted in phases based on the pace of development because, of course, the construction of the improvements is an upfront cost to the developer that is only captured upon the sale of the lot. So if it's a larger subdivision, now you just saw a subdivision tonight that was final platted in one phase because it only included a few commercial lots. So there wasn't a reason to phase that into multiple phases. But in some of the residential subdivisions in particular that you've seen over the years, we do have phases of those final, when they do final plat the property. So part of the problem that we're seeing right now in the community is the subdivision code doesn't currently include specific rules regarding final plat phasing. And while we often get a phasing plan, and we request that from the developer and they provide that to us, it has been left largely up to the developer to determine that order of development. So in some cases, this practice has resulted in critical street connections in particular have remained unfinished for a long period of time. And while other phases of the development, the large majority of houses being built prior to those critical connections being made. So this incomplete or inefficient street pattern has both short-term and long-term costs, of course, to the community. So as we know, poorly planned subdivision phasing, particularly when combined with a poorly connected street network does result in some costs. And I think sometimes we forget about these long-term costs because they're somewhat hidden. Those are the increased commute times that happen overburdening certain streets with excess traffic, which impacts those homeowners along those routes. Safety concerns for pedestrians along the congested routes, particularly children, routes to school in particular. And of course, increased driver frustration, which causes people to want to speed. And sometimes we have long stretches without intersections, and so it invites more speeding to occur. So it also results in some increased emergency response time when we don't have those connections made, and inefficient routing for utilities and also for public services such as refuse pickup and snow plowing. So these are all some of the hidden costs to both an incomplete or disconnected street pattern within our subdivisions. So just to sort of illustrate, and you can look at, it's interesting to see the city's map from the aerial view, because you can see this in many different parts of the city where we have incomplete street networks and disconnections between subdivisions. And this has just occurred over time, and it happens in many communities, particularly in recent decades, as we've had more suburban type development versus the traditional pattern of the original town. So you can see here that the lack of connections between subdivisions, the Meadows subdivision, here we have Hudson Road and the new Aldrich Elementary School. The Meadows subdivision is to the south here, which has Eric Road. And I'm sure that we've all heard the concerns about Eric Road taking all the traffic that goes to and from the elementary school, because some of these connections, these final connections on these other streets have not been made. And there are poor connectivity between subdivisions, between the Meadows and the Prairie Winds and Prairie West subdivisions. There's also a pretty disconnected street pattern, which just adds to that issue, adds to those issues. We have long blocks and cul-de-sacs, and also final plat phasing that left those last phases of the last phase, the connection to the elementary school to Ashworth, for example. This area up to the north with the West Village subdivision, that was preliminary platted a number of years ago, but no development has occurred. So that last final piece of Ironwood has also not been connected. So that's created a lot of the congestion that's on Eric Road and a lot of the complaints the city's been receiving from all these folks that have purchased homes in these subdivisions, having trouble commuting to and from work, and also people getting access to Aldrich Elementary School. So just as another sort of illustration of the difference between the way things traditionally were done, back in the early days of platting, you can see here the original town plat, which has a very connected street pattern, that traditional grid pattern that we're all familiar with, as compared to the areas further to the west here, where you can see more recent subdivisions and how those, you can very distinctly see that the boundaries between the subdivisions, because a lot of times those streets are not connected in only one or two spots. And a lot of those blocks are not, there's a lot of cul-de-sacs and long blocks here that create people, it's just farther to drive and to get to and from places. It's also harder to walk to throughout the neighborhood as well. So causing everybody to have to get in their car to drive. So, and the other thing that I think we can all relate to is, for example, the recent high wind storm that we had in Cedar Falls, and thanks goodness we didn't experience the storm that happened further to the south just yesterday, or the day before, I guess. But you can think about the emergency response times and how people get to and from neighborhoods when trees come down and power lines come down in an emergency, in a storm. If you're living in the older part of town, there's so many different routes that you can take that when trees came down in the recent storm, people could just go around to the next block if there was a tree down across the street or power lines down. Whereas if you lived in a disconnected subdivision pattern or a cul-de-sac and a tree came down across your street, you'd have trouble getting in and out, and emergency vehicles, of course, in CFU would have trouble getting in there to repair things. So there is all these hidden costs. There is a cost, of course, to connecting all the streets, and but the long-term cost to the community is quite great to have this kind of pattern. So as sort of a first step in sort of remedying these issues, we're recommending to establish a standard for final plat phasing to ensure that those critical infrastructure connections occur in a timely manner and prior to less critical areas of a subdivision. So if there's a choice about one portion of the subdivision happening first, if it's possible to connect those critical streets in the first phase, that's always, of course, ideal. Of course, we want to give flexibility to the developer to propose phasing that meets the pace of market demand and makes sense with where the utilities are being connected from. But we also want to give discretion to the city to determine if that final plat that's being proposed can function as an independent development that has all the infrastructure necessary to operate, to function well in the community, and also to ensure that no essential infrastructure improvements are being circumvented or delayed. So it just gives a little bit more control and a little more thought put into the final plat phasing that's proposed. I do want to mention, I just alluded to this in the staff report, that the next step would be to adopt street connectivity standards. There are many communities that have adopted street connectivity standards for these very reasons. So there's some good models out there. They're not very complex, and I think we can easily incorporate some of those things into our subdivision code, and we will be bringing those forward to the commission at a future meeting. So some of those things provide, it provides standards for multiple street stubs to subdivision boundaries to make sure that each subdivision is providing that street pattern that can be continued onto the adjacent properties when those develop. Limiting the block length so we don't have such a long way to get around and there's good connectivity between blocks. And then enforcing, we do have an existing restriction on cul-de-sacs, but we haven't been very good about enforcing that, and really to establish a standard for intersection spacing along our major roadways as well. So that's always a topic of conversation. So as I say, we will be bringing some standards forward to address these things in the future. One of the other things that I didn't list on the slide here, but it's also been expressed as a concern, is as subdivisions develop, and of course, sometimes a long period of time as they're building houses, that construction traffic that occurs in neighborhoods can also be a problem. So we would like to add a standard to the subdivision code to require some sort of, if possible, separate construction access. It can be like a temporary road that would be constructed in the subdivision to allow that construction traffic to come in and out without going down streets that have already been developed with houses. So we'll be bringing all those things forward to you at a future meeting. But for tonight, our first step then is to amend the subdivision code to add a paragraph about the final plat phasing. And I've included all the language here, and you could read it in the staff report. And I won't read it here on the screen, but if there's questions about it, and I think we should have a discussion about this, I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
So Karen, for discussion tonight, right? The idea being that we come to the next meeting for a public hearing.
That's correct, yes.
So kind of this is a discussion and comments tonight. We're not actually going to vote on it.
Right, that's right. And if you have any particular questions or additional information you'd like us to bring the next time, we can do that as well.
Okay. So one of the things that I guess wasn't clear, well, you're bringing it up as an issue. I always thought when we did the preliminary plat, and they had those phases, because it seems like we've always had a lot of discussion about that whenever we've had these multi-phase preliminary plats, about how what the phases were, so the infrastructure would go in an appropriate manner and allow for those connections in the most timely fashion. I thought. I've been, I'm looking at the one we're talking over there where we haven't made the connection to Green Hill. It seemed like, I guess we must have changed that along the way, because I thought the phases were supposed to be like 1, 2, 3, and they were over to Green Hill, and then the other ones followed after that. But obviously that's not happened over time. I guess my question is, don't we sort of already or have the power to not allow those phases to be changed already, or is it?
So I think while we have had those discussions, and certainly that's been a big topic of conversation, there's no standard set in the code. So it's nothing, it's just alluded to in the purpose statement, that things need to happen in an orderly manner. So we would like to make that formalized in the subdivision code, so that if there's any questions about this, we can point to that and say, this is important to the community. We need to have these. And if there's any, say, for example, if there's a subdivision plat that comes in and they're leaving out just that final little segment of road, we have the power then on the city side to say, no, you need to include those final, 5 lots there, because this is a critical connection, street connection. And we can also talk about how to order that so that those critical streets are connected first. And I know we had a lot of discussion about this when we discussed the West Fork subdivision, or it's not a subdivision yet, but when we talked about that master plan, that was a pretty important part of that discussion for these very reasons. Right. But this just formalizes a standard in the code so that we have something to turn to.
And I feel like it ensures like fair and equal application of it. And I think that's really important. And I also think you do a really nice job of explaining and describing what essential and how you would define it. If we turn over on our P&Z board, it can change what the discussion would look like. So I think that this keeps a really fair standard and keeps expectations for all developers. So I think it's a good addition.
I do think we do hear that from developers, that they're saying, well, I'm happy to do that, but I want to make sure that everybody has to follow the same standards. So I think it is something that we do hear from developers, that they want to make sure that everything's fair and equally applied.
We'll just need to make sure that whatever we do, that we maintain the case by case attention that we're currently giving each project, because the Ironwood connection, as I recall back in 2013 or so, when the Prairie West edition was platted, when it was originally the 55 acres, that's all there was. There wasn't any abutting land that was part of that project. And so connecting Green Hill at that time, that didn't even exist at that point, wasn't even on the radar. So in fact, David Sturch said when that preliminary plat was first presented, he said he thought that it would be a 10-year project, and that Prairie West edition turned into a 7-year project. And so I don't know that there's a blanket solution necessarily that would apply, because things change. The land to the south, where the school built, the school built in a sprawl kind of condition, and would be presuming market demand and privately constructed roads to satisfy its requirements that businesses and developers and everyone else has to play by. So I look forward to seeing some of the example language used in other communities. It's definitely an area of concern, I guess I'm just saying that I have a little bit of skepticism about how a blanket approach would work, or what maybe we've done wrong previously in and plat reviews on a case-by-case basis would be kind of a good example to start with. Obviously, everything is easy to see in retrospect.
Sure.
What is the time frame on this on the language and on looking at some of these examples?
I can't give you a specific timetable on that, but I'm anticipating that we will follow this code amendment on its heels pretty closely is our intent anyway. So hopefully in September, we'd have something for you to review.
Okay, that'll be great.
Looks like a good approach, Karen. I think, as Kyle said, the language is important in terms of the specifics, but there are a lot of cases like that. So it'd be nice to get it fixed. And I think just even the natural tendency of some developments like that is to build on the less, restricting traffic a little bit sometimes for the home sales, and there's a preference for that. So I think it's a good thing for us to consider.
Okay, any other questions or anything else that you would like us to bring back to you next time?
Anybody? Yeah, I guess just
I would like to just add something if I can. Do we have any, when I think about sprawling communities, I think of Ankeny. Are some of the zoning requirements in Ankeny, when I see the sprawl that Ankeny has, is there anything you can look at that they might have as a zoning response to some of their sprawl?
I certainly can look. We can certainly look at their subdivision code to see what's happening there. Like I said, we were going to try to pull up some. We have some examples of model code for street connectivity. It's a pretty big topic, and so I think there's been a lot of work that's been done nationally. So that's a good thing, is that we have some good models out there to follow. So we don't need to, pull up lots and lots of examples of subdivision codes, because a lot of that work has been done.
I think it'd be helpful to know if there are specific Iowa communities that are a sort of paradigm, because I could see where the language getting down to even specific individual words could really help or really hinder. And I feel like as we look at some of Iowa's most aggressive communities, ours being one of them in terms of growth, there are some that are overly restrictive, and there are some that are overly lax, and some that are perhaps are just a step behind, which I feel like that probably fits us in some areas. So that would be an area of interest, I think, is just which communities were discreetly striving to eyeing, I guess.
I would agree with you, Kyle, that I would like to see some of that information and make sure that we've done our research before we make all these changes.
Yeah, because Ankeny was mentioned, but Ankeny has as I've understood anyway, Ankeny has a pretty fast process, and not just the not due just to the way the code is laid out, but you go to Ankeny and you see you see a lot more density, and you see rollover curbs and a lot of things that have been historically no-nos in Cedar Falls that are some of them are old standards that are being upheld, and we're in kind of a transition as a community. We're not all that long ago. The old way of doing things with the grid streets and everything else was perfectly acceptable. And now all of a sudden, here we are thinking about ourselves as a community in the way that West Des Moines or Ankeny or Iowa City even, which is exciting, but important to get it right.
Other thoughts or comments for Karen to take forward for 2 weeks?
Okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and set the public hearing, give public notice on that. bring it back to you next time. I just want to note that I will not be at the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, but Stephanie Sheets will be here to take final comments on that, the recent, this particular amendment to the code.
You'll take the easy way out, huh, Karen? Well, that should be good. Yeah, we look forward to that on the 26th. With that, I guess that completes all of our regular business items tonight. Is there any other commission updates, Karen, you can share or need to share?
No, unfortunately, we're going to continue with the video conferences. I think we're getting a little better. We keep getting better and better. It's a little smoother and smoother, but I just with the community spread, I think we need to continue to do that, and the city's policies continue to meet via video conference. So. Yep.
Okay. Well, I won't be hurt when it all is over, but we'll carry on. Is there any other comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the 26th.
All right. Thank you.